Hi there, so in my presentation we're going to look at and critically analyse French contrast training program. Okay, we're going to overview, so we're going to look at the introduction of French contrast training program, what is it, how it's implemented, the research behind it, give you a more broader range of what it is and how it's been implemented and the construct of it, how can we practically apply it in our everyday coaching, and then conclude, is it going to benefit our athletes and what can the research do forward. So FCT was first created and developed by a French athletics coach who wanted to take advantage of the post-activation potentiation effect. However, Cal Dietz seen this method and took it away and molded it and changed it, and he added a level of athletes working in under anaerobic capacity, so producing powerful movements anaerobically, so being able to produce powerful movements for longer. So the idea of FCT came by bringing the concept of the combination of contrast and complex training methods. And the theory behind it, it's implementing 4 exercises. So as we're saying here, it's a heavy compound movement followed by a plyometric movement, followed by a 30 to 40% weighted powerful movement, and then an assisted plyometric movement. So bringing this all together, so it was looking at utilizing the PAP concept, so the post-activation concept. And this concept that is based on it stimulates greater powerful neuromuscular contraction. So I said, like, if said contraction is first preceded by a stronger neuromuscular movement, so that heavy compound movement, and then into the plyometric movement. So that's where that comes from. And that's how we're trying to utilize that PAP effect. And then Cal Dietz brought the complex and contrast methods together and added a more anaerobic work capacity. So this concept was developed to improve power outputs in our athletes, but allow the athlete to produce high levels of power for longer, so true fatigue. So the improvement in generating more force is due to the greater recruiting motor units, enhanced inter and intramuscular coordination, and reduced presynaptic inhibition. So it's usually done over a 4 to 6 week period where we're looking at trying to improve rate of force development, recruiting more motor units. So this is helpful for our team sports, sprinters, jumpers, athletes who produce powerful movements. So really, we have to bring it back and look at what FCT brings together, and so like complex and contrast training methods. So the complex training method is one where you use heavy strength exercises and a plyometric or ballistic training in the same session. So not back to back, but in the same session. And this was created to improve the force velocity profile of an athlete, so performing a heavy compound lift, work onto recruiting high levels of motor units and greater force output, and then that plyometric movement aims at producing high amounts of force at high speeds. Whereas contrast training pairs a heavy lift with a plyometric lift. So it allows the path of performing a set of heavy lift, rest for a selected amount of time, and then perform a plyometric exercise. So it's back to back. So almost a superset, but you get a rest in between that, in between the heavy lift and the plyometric lift. So really, in all, so complex allows for 2 training programs in the same session. Contrast pairs them together, both usually utilizing post-activation potentiation. So post-activation potentiation, what is it? It's really the short-term improvement in the contractile ability of the muscle to generate force. And this phenomenon came about, and it's the acute improvement in muscle kinetics through the enhanced excitation of muscle fibers, which increases force generating qualities in said muscle. So simply put, the force generated by muscle is improved due to the previous contraction performed by it, so that heavy lift, and then going into that plyometric lift. I'll keep referring back to that. And that PAP affects certain muscle fibers more so that have short twitch contraction times, such as type 2 muscle fibers. And this concept has thus then been the basis in the development of complex and contrast training due to the potential acute improvements of power output. So this came before complex and contrast, and that was complex and contrast was built on PAP, then FCT was built on them. So all PAP is the cornerstone and the fundamental movement, the concept within FCT. So how do we implement it? So normal session, you'd look at first a heavy exercise, a main lift, so heavy compound lift, followed by a secondary exercise, a plyometric lift, which mimics the first heavy lift, and then the third exercise aims at producing greater amounts of force in shorter times, and which contrasts that first exercise. And then lastly, that assisted movement, or accelerated movement, works on the bottom of the curve, looking at max speed, super maximum. And typically the second exercise mimics the first, heavy back squat body. So research around it. So Al-Badri did an 8-week program of FCT with female college athletes, so an upper and lower body explosive strength program, looking with implementing FCT, and they assessed through different testing parameters. So physical testing and then 2D imaging, looking at testing. So they found that explosive strength and the kinematic parameters through the 2D imaging of the triple jump were improved following an 8-week FCT program. So they looked at a triple jump, but it wasn't stated these females were triple jumpers, it was assumed. So the Sargent test improved by just under 4%, counter movement jump improved by just under 2%, the triple jump distance improved by just under 4%, so significant improvements. They say that due to the combination of exercise, the FCT program aided the CNS in recruiting greater amounts of muscle fibers, just increasing that rate of force development. And as I said, it was presumed that these athletes are triple jumpers, but it's not stated in the study, so there can be question marks to learn there was a familiarization effect from the testing of jumping those triple jumps then to the end. So we can't reliably say that this will improve triple jumpers and improve these female athletes, but they weren't. We don't know if they were triple jumpers, so we don't know if that effect had it on professional, highly trained triple jumpers. And the study was performed in a closed environment, so the study didn't state where the athletes were prohibited from doing anything outside of the training program. So they could have been doing anything. They might have been resting. They might have been doing another training program. We don't really know. So it has to be taken caution. Those results have to be taken with a bit of caution. And then Welch looked at the FCT program and looked at the effects on max strength and vertical jump height, and used 10 male athletes. So like Al-Badri, they didn't have a big subject whole, so small groups, so it's very hard to make this data reliable or significant. And they formed a 6-week program, 2 sessions a week, which can be viewed on the table there. And the sessions were separated by 48 hours to allow for recovery. And athletes were asked to refrain from any exercises 24 hours prior to testing or training. But 2 sessions per week, some days they might be getting more than 48 hours. And in those 48 hours, they could still do other exercises. So that can be still questioned. And he found a significant effect in the variables. All strength variables were positively affected, which can be shown in table 2. And all power tests were significantly affected positively in table 3. So based on two research results, FCT has a positive effect on athletes. Don't know how, comparing it to other training programs, if it'll have a better effect. It has a positive effect, but it can be said any training program can have a positive effect on athletes that haven't done it before. So it has to be taken with a bit of pinch of salt and question this. And then, as I said, athletes were stopped from doing sessions, 6-week programs, so they weren't just asked not from a 24-hour period program, so they couldn't be doing anything else up before that 24-hour period. So the summary of the research should stay there in the box. So Al-Badri, Welch and Hernandez were the 3 main significant research finds I could get, because there's limited research around FCT. And we'll talk about Hernandez in the next slide a bit more. And what are the advantages of FCT? So true research. So the previous research looking at FCT has shown to elicit improvements in strength variables and explosive attributes. So if you're looking at improved strength and power, FCT is very helpful. It can be utilised in teams, in team sports or individual athletes who have limited time periods. So if you have limited time, these sessions can be done in a 20-minute period, 20 to 25-minute period. and it allows us to work along that force velocity curve. So that heavy lift, accelerated lift, plyometric, speed strength, everything like that, and build many abilities in one session where time is a factor. So as I was saying, Hernandez et al. Showed the acute positive potentiation effects of FCT on vertical jump height. However, they compared FCT against a standardized warm-up. So really, a question there, you could do a strength program along a standardized warm-up and it'll have an improvement. So really, you can't really compare FCT to standardized warm-ups. You compare anything to standardized warm-up and it'll improve. So that has to be taken into question. So when trying to have an acute potentiation effect, they say that 2 sets is enough, and as going into 3 is fatiguing in nature and heightened and inhibits the potentiation effects. And they mentioned that perhaps performing 2 sets of FCT prior to team sport events like combat sports or track and field may benefit from using this method in their training programs due to building these many abilities and recruiting high amounts of force, motor units, and stimulating RFD capabilities. So potential disadvantages from the research due to high level of movement quality and competency. It's not really used for beginners. It's a high level athletes that are very competent in their movements. And in examining the research, FCT, which is minimal, it can be debated through the high volume of research in other areas such as contrast and complex training, then be just as effective. So we haven't compared FCT off a heavy strength program or a plyometric program or whatever like that. So it was only FCT against nothing really. So it can be argued that doing a normal plyometric program would probably may have more benefits or might have the same benefits. So that has to be taken into question. And the acute effects are shown there, but is there long-term effects? So we need to do a longer-term study over more longitudinal, and also compare it. The biggest thing I have to get across is we have to compare it because it's only against itself. And the research gathered didn't, as I said, didn't compare. And I would argue that performing any resistance or power program will elicit a PAP effect in vertical jump height. But further research needs to be done, looking at FCT, examining fatigue on jump height due to the program or long-term effects, and look at more applied set team environments. So is it really the next big thing? In essence, from the research, it improves strength and power capabilities. But however, level of FCT improves capabilities can be questioned because it can't compare it against anything else. So you need to have a study where it compares the 2 programs. And do we need to complicate training when there's simpler methods out there, like a normal heavy strength program of a 4 to 6 week program or a plyometric program, which have been shown and backed up with numerous researches that improve this? So do we need to complicate it? And improving the strength of our athletes hasn't changed. So providing them with a periodized strength program, as I said, working on a certain percentage of 1 rep, utilizing this set scheme of 3 to 5 reps, ranging from 3 to 5, with reps ranging from 3 to 5 as well, and has improved strength levels. So from the research. And practical application, so it's time efficient. So when we have time, we might have only half an hour with our team. This is effective. You can hit again its strength, power, speed, all in the one session, which is massive for us when we have time constraints. And it can be easily implemented across the team. So they're highly competent in their movement, so it can be easily. And then to conclude, so really we're looking at FCT as a whole. So from research, it has big positive effects, and it utilizes that post-activation potentiation effect, and it hits all those movements such as strength, power, speed, and it can improve power characteristics. So hopefully if there's research out there to improve speed characteristics, and then those practical applications. So in season, when we've lit time with our athletes, this can be great to utilize. So try and hit a number of areas and hitting along that force velocity curve where you want to improve explosive movement. It also can be used in a pre-season to look at that taper. So it's a high intense exercise, but the volume is low. So we can use it for that peaking period in the season and that tapering into the season as well. So as I said, like to conclude, using in the season can be effective with time constraints. And then looking at the research, little research available. So we need to look going forward to compare FCT against another program. Look more longitudinally and look at the more and also show the effects of fatigue on explosive power during FCT and how can we optimize that. And there are my references.